Mental exercises and brain teasers. Mental exercises involve activities or tasks designed to stimulate and challenge the brain, promoting cognitive functions such as memory, concentration, reasoning, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. The aim is to enhance overall mental health and maintain mental fitness, similar to how physical exercise keeps your body healthy. Brain teasers are a specific type of mental exercise, often in the form of puzzles, riddles, or challenges, that require logical reasoning, unconventional lateral thinking, and creative problem-solving skills to reach a solution or answer. They are often utilized for entertainment, humor, or mental exercise. Some puzzles serve as both mental exercises and brain teasers. Rumor has it that Google, several innovative AI companies, as well as the enigmatic Elon Musk, utilize specific types of logical puzzles in their search for top talents. Here are a few examples. Puzzle number 1. The King's Wise Men. The king summoned the 3 wisest men in the land, preparing to select one as his new advisor. He presented them with 5 hats, 2 white and 3 black. He then placed a hat on each of their heads so they could see the others' hats but not their own. The remaining 2 hats were hidden. The wise men were instructed not to communicate. The king declared that whoever correctly announced the color of his own hat first would become his new advisor. After a period of silence, one wise man correctly proclaimed that he wore a black hat, implying all 3 wise men wore black hats. How did the future advisor deduce this? This is the solution. There are only 3 possible ways the wise men can wear their hats: 1, 2 white hats and 1 black hat; 2, 1 white hat and 2 black hats; 3, 3 black hats. Number 1. If a wise man sees that the other 2 are wearing white hats, he immediately knows and announces that he is wearing a black hat. Number 2. If a wise man sees 1 white hat and 1 black hat, he can deduce that if he himself is wearing a white hat, the one wearing a black hat would see 2 white hats and immediately announce that he is wearing a black hat. The key is that in above 2 cases, one wise man will immediately announce that he is wearing a black hat. So if no wise man immediately announces, then only the 3rd possibility remains. Number 3. All 3 wise men are wearing black hats, and each sees 2 black hats. Any wise man can assume that he is wearing a white hat, so the other 2 wise men would see 1 white hat and 1 black hat. These 2 wise men will deduce using the second method described above. The smarter one will immediately announce that he is wearing a black hat. However, this 3rd method will take some time for the wise men to deduce that all 3 of them are wearing black hat. So if there is a period of silence, the smartest one will be the first to think of the answer. He will also become the king's new advisor. Puzzle number 2. Bipartisan Immigration Reform Bill. Warning, warning. This is a satire, and also a highly engaging, really good logical puzzle. I've adapted the original, Prisoner's Puzzle, into this politically charged, illegal immigrants puzzle, to capture your attention, while simultaneously poking fun at certain politicians, stereotypical party ideologies, and the non-existent immigration policies. At day's end, illegal immigrants apprehended at the border will line up facing the same direction. The length of the line would depend upon daily arrests. Each immigrant will have a black or white hat, placed on their head randomly, in a way that they can't see the color of their own hats. The line formation allows each immigrant to see the hats of those ahead, but not behind them. Starting from the last person in line, each immigrant must shout, black, or white, to match their own hat's color. If he guesses right, he will be given a green card that allows him to stay in the USA, become a citizen in 5 years, and then vote for Democrats. Those who guess wrong will be shot in the head instantly, and later buried in a mass grave officiated by a Catholic priest. All other immigrants can hear what is shouted, and whether the person is shot or not. Communication between the immigrants is prohibited, but they're permitted to plot a strategy before the lineup. What is the best strategy to maximize the number of immigrants obtaining green cards? Democrats advocate for a bilingual plan that allows immigrants to shout in English or Spanish, whereas Republicans insist on English only. Why is the bilingual plan superior to English only for the immigrants? Answer: because the bilingual plan is much simpler. Solution: bilingual strategy. If immigrants are allowed to shout in English or Spanish, Democrats will dispatch a team to Texas to coach the immigrants on this simple strategy. Given the random distribution of hats, the last immigrant in line cannot gain any information to deduce the color of his own hat. His chance of survival is 50%. However, there is a simple strategy to ensure the survival of all other immigrants, no matter how many persons are in line. Since each immigrant can see the color of the hat of the person in front of him, they can use a method to declare the correct color of their own hat, and at the same time alert the person ahead. For example, if they have been alerted that their own hat is black, they should shout "Negro" in Spanish if the person ahead has the same color. Conversely, if they shout "black" in English, that could only imply that the person ahead has a hat of the opposite color. Similarly, if they have been alerted that their own hat is white, they should shout "blanco" in Spanish if the person ahead also has a hat of the same color. If they shout "white" in English, that could only imply that the person ahead has a hat of the opposite color. So the strategy is simple and easy to remember. Spanish means we are the same, and English is exactly opposite. It also delineates the solidarity among the immigrants themselves, and opposition to the unjust treatment at the border. English-only strategy. Given the random distribution of hats, the last immigrant in line, designated here as number 1, since he is the first one to shout, cannot gain any information to deduce the color of his own hat. His chance of survival is 50%. However, there is a strategy that number 1 can use to help his fellow travelers, and ensure the survival of all of them, by counting the number of black hats on all those ahead of him. If the count is odd, he shouts "black." If the count is even, he shouts "white." In this example, number 1 sees an odd number ahead, so he shouts "black." Now number 2 also counts the number of black hats ahead of her. From the information she receives from number 1, she knows that the total number of black hats that number 1 sees is an odd number. If the number of black hats she has just counted is an odd number, she knows that her own hat must be white. If that number is even, then her own hat must be black, in order for number 1 to see an odd number of black hats. In this example, number 2 sees an even number of black hats ahead, and shouts "black." She will survive. Now it is number 3's turn. From the information he receives from number 1, the total number of black hats number 1 sees is an odd number. Since number 2 declares that she wears a black hat and survives, then the remaining black hats should be an even number. All he has to do is count the number of black hats on all those ahead of him. If it is still an even number, his own hat must be white. If it is an odd number, it is because he himself wears a black hat. In this example, number 3 sees an even number of black hats ahead, and shouts "white." He will also survive. By using this strategy, and keeping track of the odd, even status of black hats, except for number 1, who has a 50-50 chance of being shot, all other immigrants can look forward to fulfilling their American dreams of joining the Democratic Party and becoming union members. The question is, if this bill tilts heavily in favor of the immigrants, why do Republican right-wingers also like it? The reason is simple. It is sometimes difficult to get the exact number of black hats ahead if the line is too long. Certain Republican right-wingers hold a skewed belief that most immigrants are numerically challenged and can only count with their fingers. Democrats are outraged when they hear this kind of put-downs, but they are also pushing a pro-choice amendment that gives immigrants the right to choose the number of people in a line. The right-wingers have no objection, so this becomes the bipartisan immigration reform bill. Imagine dividing 100 individuals into 10 groups. There will then be 10 immigrants in the precarious number 1 position. With a 50-50 odd, 5 of them will be shot. 5 dead immigrants out of 100 is a good enough number for an average right-winger. This is puzzle number 3. Heaven or hell, in search of the way. This is one of the easiest logical puzzles. Behold, there are 2 and only 2 gods, the true and the false. The true God always speaks truthfully, while the false always speaks falsely. They stand at the crossroad with 2 tracks. Both gods know each other, and both know exactly which track leads to the heaven, and which leads to hell. Your task is to determine the correct track to heaven. It is a crucial task as your eternal destiny depends upon it. You can only ask one question, and only to one God. You do not know the identity of the gods, but you know that one always speaks truthfully and the other one always speaks falsely. What question should you ask? Solution. Ask either God the following question: if I were to ask the other God which track leads to heaven, what would he say? Explanation. If you ask the true God, he will truthfully tell you what the false God would say. Since the false God always lies, the true God's response will indicate the wrong track. If you ask the false God, he will lie about what the true God would say. Therefore, his response will also indicate the wrong track. Regardless of which God you ask, their response will lead you to hell. So, you should choose the opposite track from the one they indicate. This way, you can determine the correct track to heaven by asking just one question. Since mathematics is considered the language of God, the solution to this puzzle can also be explained mathematically. When you multiply a negative number by a positive number, the product is always negative. Similarly, when you multiply a positive number by a negative number, the product is also always negative. This is puzzle number 4, In Search of the True God. This is so-called the hardest logic puzzles ever. The hardest logic puzzle ever is a logic puzzle so-called by American philosopher and logician, George Boulos, and attributed to the logician and puzzle master, Raymond Smullyan. 3 gods A, B, and C are called, in some order, true, false, and random. True always speaks truly, false always speaks falsely, but whether random speaks truthfully or falsely is a completely random matter. Your task is to determine the identities of A, B, and C, by asking 3 yes-no questions. Each question must be directed to exactly one god. The gods understand English, but will answer all questions in their own language, in which the words for yes and no are da and ya, in some order. You do not know which word means which. Here are a few clarifications about the puzzle. It could be that some gods get asked more than one question, and hence that some gods are not asked any question at all. What the second question is, and to which god it is put, may depend on the answer to the first question. And of course, similarly for the third question. Whether random speaks truly or not, should be thought of as depending on the flip of a coin, hidden in his brain. If the coin comes down heads, he speaks truly; if tails, falsely. Random will answer da or ya when asked any yes-no question. Solution. I wasn't able to figure out the solution, so I looked it up. Several answers are available on the internet. However, their solutions are so complicated that I couldn't understand them. Finally, I asked ChatGPT. Here is its precise answer. I think it is simpler to understand than the others. AI solution. Question 1. Ask any god the question: if I asked you whether A is true, would you say da? If the answer is da, then the god you asked is either true or random. Proceed to the next step. If the answer is ya, then the god you asked is either false or random. Move to step 2. Question 2. Ask the same god: if I ask you whether B is true, would you say da? If the answer is da, then the god you asked is true. Therefore, the other 2 gods are false and random. If the answer is ya, then the god you asked is random. Move to step 3. Question 3. Ask any god. It doesn't matter which one. The question: is C true? If the answer is da, then the god you asked is true, and the remaining god is false. If the answer is ya, then the god you asked is false, and the remaining god is true. This series of questions will always lead you to determine the identities of gods A, B, and C accurately, within 3 questions. This is my first YouTube video. I hope you enjoy it. In the next videos, I will discuss logical puzzles, political logics, philosophy, and mythology. My plan is to explain these serious topics in a simple, precise, humorous, and interesting manner. Please like, share, and subscribe for new video updates. Thanks.